are back here 3 minutes later. Um, I think that's something that people really need to understand about Canadian politics is that it's skewed, as it would be, by what you would probably consider the natural ruling party. So I think for most of the past, it's the Liberals have been in control, so they've set things up to their advantage most likely. And I actually found the number. I didn't know this before, but in the last election, compared to the Conservatives, I believe this is true. I got this from Nanos polling or whatever. They got 49% as many votes as the Conservatives. So they lost the popular vote. But they won 36 more seats. So what that means is that those seats have more influence on, that happen to be, generally speaking, go Liberal, which the chance, whatever number of votes they got in the last election, their chances, I bet they're the number of votes that go Liberal this time, this is my prediction, drops by 20%. People don't like to make predictions because, if they're wrong, well, then people know that you made a bad prediction, won't they? I don't give a shit. I bet it drops by 20%. And if I'm wrong about that, the country's crazy. Yeah, so with less than half the number of votes, you can win 36 more seats, and those go Liberal. I think that the whole question is how badly both of the votes are split. Trudeau's going to lose a lot to Jagmeet Singh, I think, unless the NDP is convinced that by voting for NDP, it's a vote for the Conservatives. Everybody's really concerned about how the vote will be split this time. I've seen so many journalists say, "Oh, what a humdrum election this is." This election is really not a humdrum election. If you've got, according to some polls, 10 or 11% support for the People's Party of Canada, that's not a dull election. I haven't seen the CBC interview him once. Not in this election. So people didn't like it in the last election in the United States where Trump won with, he lost the popular vote but won the Electoral College. It's just like in Canada winning, not getting the popular vote but getting 36 more ridings or whatever. And it's quite amazing in a way, because the reason that the electoral districts are cut up in the United States the way that they are, the reason that the rednecks and farmers have more influence on American politics than their numbers would justify, is because they thought that if those people didn't have a bigger voice in American politics, they would leave. So you have a small state, doesn't have very many voters, compared to New York, which has got a ton of voters. If the New York voters controlled the whole thing, nothing would go to the states with smaller populations, and those states would just eventually leave. And if you go back in the democratic tradition back to Athens, the only reason that democracy worked there for the short time that it did is because almost everyone was a farmer. Farmers have their feet on the ground and their heads someplace logical. They have to. maybe not so much anymore, the way that it's mechanized and all that, but uh, Alexander Truckville or whatever I think his name was. Yeah, you can't have democracy in the United States without uh, working people, mostly farmers, participating in the democracy and having an inordinate voice, or the country would just fall apart. You need people with their feet on the ground. And so what you've got in Canada, either intentionally or not intentionally, is a situation where it works exactly the opposite. So the areas that have the densest populations also have an inordinate power in the political process. And if you were to go back to the founding fathers or to Athenian democracy and said, what do you expect here? They would say that it's preposterous. And the arrogance and the what do you call that? When people expect to be in a, what do you call it? Entitled. The arrogant and entitled attitude of people who live in the cities, who most likely are involved in superficially academic or intellectual matters. They're more likely to be journalists. This might be changing too, as journalists could move out in the country and do their job. It doesn't make any difference where you are now. But you have more educators, more universities, more journalists, and this type of people is there. It's at some point, it's natural for them to become arrogant because they've studied, for example, the history of democracy, whereas other people haven't. It's natural for them to think that they're superior. But the whole problem with that is they're all living in a bubble. And you would think that you could get a state-funded media organization to bust the bubble when everybody knows there's a bubble. But they won't. And so many people are saying, trust the experts, trust the experts. But if you've got an academic who's been arguing in favor of capitalism for the last 45 years, and evidence comes in to prove that capitalism doesn't work very well, then he's going to be really slow to change his mind, because it's a big fat hassle to change your mind. It's a big fat hassle to change your mind. I think that's basically it. And because you're so invested in the system, you're supporting a political party that wants to brag up the benefits of capitalism and all the rest. You become integrated into the political system. Every citizen of any country should understand that experts are always suspect, especially if they're intellectuals. And you can tell an intellectual because they don't produce anything but ideas. And their ideas can be proven wrong, shown to be wrong, argued to be wrong. And it doesn't change their opinion. They get paid to have a certain opinion. Academics in Canada are getting paid not to have an overly critical opinion of the Chinese Communist Party. It's their bread and butter. That's why they don't criticize it. Very few academics or journalists in Canada are taking that situation seriously, as evidenced by the election debate that didn't even bring up the issue. A dull election? Yeah, if you haven't paid any attention whatsoever, you're dealing with the problems that you have at home, or whatever, and you don't pay attention, it could be dull. But this is by no means a dull election. To the People's Party of Canada, I would say, I want to avoid using the word dumb so often, but like, don't be dumb. If 300 or 500 of you vote in a riding where there's no chance of being elected and the election is close and you throw it to Trudeau for that, um, and I suppose, yeah, it's even if they win ridings, which they're going to maybe do, I think. I don't think Maxime Bernier is going to win his. David Frey, lawyer turned YouTuber, he's running for the People's Party of Canada. He won't get elected because he's up against a really big time Liberal. One of the good ones, I think, too. But it's possible they'll win a seat. But it would still detract from votes to go to the Conservatives. So if the Conservatives win a majority and the People's Party of Canada wins a few seats, that's absolutely fantastic. If the Conservatives win a minority, at least they can set up a new cabinet. Right? They'll still have to get support from the NDP or the Liberals or the Bloc Québécois or the Greens, if they even elect one. The most amazing thing is that the Green Party has lost delegates because it was discovered that they had made anti-Semitic comments in the past, and their new leader, a black woman, who I like very much, I don't like her political attitude, but she seems nice to me, is Jewish. Like, really, who expected that? There's not very many black Jews, I don't think. There's the black Israelites in the United States. What a bunch of characters they are. I think it's the black Israelites. I don't want to connect her with them, but yeah. What else? I guess that's a bit about it. It's worth understanding the thing about the way that the ridings are divided up. We should look at that. Should be changed. We should, and I think, okay, that's the other thing that I didn't mention. I think that, like, as of like about a year ago, like every 10 years, we have to sort of break it up and try to divide it like 110, 110. But if there's an established community one place, it could be a gay community, a black community, a Greek community. It could be any sort of thing that feels like it's a community. That could be a riding, even if there's 50,000 or something. I think the lowest is maybe 70. But you know, every 10 years we get a chance to redraw those boundaries, and the chance came up, and I didn't hear Conservatives talk about it. I didn't hear Maxime Bernier talk about it. Those ridings, they need to be redrawn, and we need to take out of the Canadian Declarations of Rights and Freedoms, or whatever it is, the right to discriminate against white men, because in order to overcome past injustices. That has to change. I've never heard anybody mention that.